My mother passed away on the 8th of September in the Philippines. We lost the purest member of the family. She's just the sweetest and warmest person to be around. Before the Philippines, my mother was in Japan for 6 months. Healthy and happy, she had the best time with her grandson. She went to the Philippines at the end of July. It was supposed to be a short trip, to sell a small piece of land she had bought with my father. She was planning on selling it and never going back, because she wanted to spend the rest of her time with her grandson. She always thought of others first. She was just too kind sometimes, and her relatives in the Philippines took full advantage of that. Even when we struggled financially, she'd give what little she had to her relatives in the Philippines. She cared about all my friends as well. So when we got the news that she died, it was a huge shock for everyone. To all our friends. We all had the same questions. Her death was not natural. The circumstances surrounding my mother's death were bizarre and highly suspicious. Her last message to my dad was on the 4th. We discovered that someone else was using my mother's phone. On top of that, in our investigation, we learned how broken the system is in the Philippines. Because of the pandemic, almost all deaths are assumed to be COVID. In fact, if a relative says it's COVID, this broken system will make it COVID. It's so broken that people could get away with murder. You can get with a blank death certificate with no cause of death and a positive COVID result, which you can just show to the crematorium with your phone. That's what happened to my mother. She didn't die in the hospital. She died in her sister Marilyn's house. Both Marilyn and her other sister Emily said she died of COVID. My mother stayed at Emily's house, then went over to Marilyn's house in the beginning of September. That's when we lost contact with her. There were times my mother slept in the same room as Emily, shared meals with Emily. And in Marilyn's house, Marilyn's husband and her 2 9-year-old twin granddaughters lived there. My cousin Irene and her husband Ronald were the ones who transported my mother from Emily's house to Marilyn's house. Then they also stayed over at Marilyn's house for those days that my mother was there. My mother slept in the same room as these twins during her stay there. In fact, these twins witnessed my mother's final dying moments. There's just no way it's COVID because all of those close contact relatives are completely fine. None of them are sick. And apparently, none of them have COVID. There's no quarantine or a lockdown. We begged for an autopsy to be done since the day my mother died. But Marilyn lied her way to getting my mother cremated. We also kept asking for documents. But Marilyn kept the death certificate and the clinical abstract hidden. She lied about it repeatedly. When we finally got the clinical abstract, 6 days after my mother died, it turned out that the doctor actually wrote, "Suggest autopsy." So Marilyn purposely hid the documents so that she could get my mother cremated. No autopsy, no evidence. So we'll never know the real cause of death. Well, what can we do now? This is a serious problem. Perhaps not just in the Philippines, but all over the world. People and institutions like hospitals, chapels, crematoriums are taking advantage of the pandemic, profiteering from the deaths. All you need to do is suspect it's COVID. The swab result? They'll make it all positive. Who is actually going to check? There's no proper system to validate the documents. So with the case with my mother, she got cremated with no questions asked. Just with a blank death certificate and a low quality soft copy COVID result presented with a phone. With the body gone, you can't even question the validity of the COVID result. Can't even prove if it is fake. People can get away with rape and murder. There is no justice now. Authorities will not question it. They'll accept it. The NBI, they accepted it. They said it was okay. We haven't approached the police because all my Filipino friends and the lawyer said the same thing. They won't do anything.
Napakaraming corruption ngayon. Obserbasyon ko ngayon, sa 100 cops, siguro mga 10 na lang yung talagang mabait.
I didn't know that about the Philippines. I was absolutely appalled to hear this. It's disgusting. The people and the system. I never expected that because my mother made me see the good in the people and the country. And now she's dead, and we'll never truly know why. The truth is with her sister, Marilyn. Maybe there are others out there going through the same situation. These COVID deaths, they're not just numbers. They are stories. Getting my mother home is not so simple anymore. We have to expose this broken system. We have to spread awareness. We need to put pressure on those responsible. Otherwise, the truth will never come out. Otherwise, my mother's death will just be another number. We need justice for my mother. Please share this video. Please share our story and share yours too. Thank you and take care.
Slippery.